Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to an incredible game from the computer chess rating list website. We have here Clover versus Stockfish in an incredible, really wild attacking game in the English Opening. And this game I think is really useful for you because probably you meet the English Opening very often. You don't know what to do, you don't know how to counterplay these ideas, and in my opinion this game that you see now is really instructive because it's a regular opening. It's not one of those, I don't know, prepared bad openings for one engine or something that we see many times in the CCR or maybe in the TCC competition and maybe in some other computer chess championships. If you have followed maybe these competitions, then you know that basically one engine has a huge advantage. In the beginning, basically black is defending the position with the black pieces, but not in this game. In this game, we have inequality here from the beginning, and then Stockfish will basically spread its wings in the English Opening here with the black pieces, and then we'll see again immortal cool tactics with really wild lines all over the board, and also with one element that I really love to see most of the times in the Stockfish games. It's the rook lift. Whenever Stockfish plays a rook lift, then you know that the rook will dance all over the board and then becomes it's really the best piece on the board. So pay good attention. In my opinion, really great tactical but also beautiful instructive game here played by the fish with the black pieces. So let's see now the game. The Clover engine will open with the move c4, the English Opening. We have now the move e5. We have King's English variation here. We have knight to c3, knight to c6, and after move g3 we have now the reverse Sicilian setup. I like to play this line also with the white pieces because I play the Sicilian with the black pieces against e4. So there are many similar strategic concepts that happen also in the English Opening, like in the Sicilian with the black pieces. So sometimes I just reverse the game with the white pieces and play basically the same line. So in the game we have g6 by Stockfish. We have bishop to g2, bishop to g7, d3, and after move d6 now we have already the direction of the attack, which is I think very important for this game. And this direction of the attack is I think a result of the pawn structure that's common here. Look at this. We have from black's perspective, of course, this c7 d6 e5 pawn structure. It means that somewhere on the king side or maybe in the center of the board black will make progress. On the other hand, of course, the small pawn chain e2, d3, and c4 is showing that, of course, the direction of the attack that white will attack here the queen side with ideas of b4 and b5. So that's why Stockfish blocks a little bit of progress. You cannot, of course, prevent the whole progress here on the queen side, but at least you can slow it down. That's, I think, one of the concepts that has to be familiar to you when you play here the English Opening, the reverse Sicilian like this. As I said, a3 and b4 are coming for sure, but at least you stopped it for a while. At least you gain sort of an extra tempo to develop your pieces. Now, after move b4, a takes b4, a takes b4, okay, white is there, but he didn't play immediately b4. At least you have developed a knight, and you have now the opportunity to castle king side. So far, I think normal strategy here for both sides. So the Clover engine continues the pressure, b5, knight to d4, and now there are basically two choices how to attack now the knight on d4. You can play e3 or knight to f3. In the game, Clover played the move knight to f3, and now Stockfish continues here the pressure against the knight on f3 with the move bishop to g4. Here the Clover engine retreats to d2. If you play something like knight takes d4, then after e takes d4, knight to d5, rook to a2, I think it's also very interesting idea. The pawn on e2 is weak. In the next couple of moves, rook to e8 could happen. I'm not saying this is completely destroy the position here for white, but it could be really unpleasant to face immediately such an activity of black's pieces. So that's why after move bishop to g4, the Clover engine retreated to d2 and also attacked now the weak pawn on b7. Stockfish counterplays this idea with the move c6. We have now the move h3, and whenever you get attacked, whenever you have to retreat, of course, there are now no good counter attack possibilities now for black. At least retreat to the most active square, and of course the most active square is the move bishop to f5. At least now the bishop is staying on this diagonal. Maybe there are some tactics, e4, bishop to d3, knight to e2. So something is going on here already on light squares in the position. So knight to b3 played by Clover, still making progress against the knight on d4. We have now the move h5. risky choice, but of course an aggressive choice here by Stockfish. Stockfish wants to create immediately madness here on the king side, because we can expect also white to castle in the next couple of moves. So now Stockfish is already making huge progress here on this side of the board. So clever castles anyway. We have queen to d7 attacking now the pawn on h3. The king protects it now, and now bishop to e6 controlling further the d5 square in the next couple of moves. Maybe we can prepare somehow the move d5, but so far it would still be risky because the knight could occupy the c5 square. So maybe you can have to trade off the knight for this knight, but still I'm not sure if the d5 breakthrough is so great, because I think we should really evaluate our knight here. Our knight is perfectly fine here. Whenever you have the opportunity to occupy and to attack your opponent's spaces, leave it like this. Your time will come maybe with the move d5, but so far the knight is really powerful in the center of the board. So now bishop to e3. Clover continues the pressure against this knight. Rook to a3. Really interesting choice, because Stockfish prepared here really a dirty trap, because if you play knight to d4, this wasn't the continuation of the game, but I wanted to show really some cool tactics here. E takes d4, bishop to d4, and now knight to g4 comes into the game with a check. You have to react. Bishop to d4, the knight is hanging. You have to maybe trade off the rooks now, and now after bishop to g4, black would continue here the game with a beautiful bishop pair. In my opinion, this should be a good position for black. Although the engine gives you equal chances, I would love to play always more this position from black's perspective with the bishop pair, with the opportunity to create madness. The knight is a little bit attacked. The knight is a little bit also overloaded to the defense of the pawn on e2. The e file is open, so many strategic ideas that are good, I think, here only for black. So that's why I think this is much better position for black. So after rook to a3, that's why Clover didn't touch still the knight on d4, played simply bishop to c1, attacked the rook to a8. We have bishop to g5, and now knight to h7, kicking away this bishop. Bishop retreats here to d2, and now knight to f6 here, played by Stockfish, still maybe forcing, even in some lines, perpetuals, maybe bishop to g5, knight to h7, and probably black doesn't have also so many opportunities in the game, because we have to also say this light square bishop is really the best minor piece on the board. If something clears here, then it could be really devastating position for black. But after move knight to f6 that Stockfish played, the Clover engine made maybe its first mistake now in the game. Knight to c1 seems tempting, of course. You want to play then afterwards e3, still your d3 pawn is protecting, and now you basically are trying to kick away this knight. But now Stockfish played on a beautiful idea. Stockfish made progress immediately with the move e4. Now when the knight is not loose on d4, Stockfish uses this moment immediately and creates madness in the center of the board. Of course, knight takes e4 and knight takes e4 are not leading into a good position for white, because after bishop to e4, your pawn on h3 is hanging, so you cannot actually pick up the knight. If you pick it up with the pawn, then of course here the pawn on c4 is hanging. Now again, weaknesses here around the square e2. This one is weak. The knight is very active. Again, the e file attack, maybe also the a file attack would work. Many tactical opportunities but I only see good opportunities here for black in this position. So e4, brilliant move here by Stockfish. We have knight to a4. The Clover engine counterplays now Stockfish idea with the possibility of a fork on b6. Stockfish makes now progress. Queen to c7 protects now the b6 square, and now bishop to e3 attacking still the knight. And now Stockfish has to retreat with the knight, with this knight on f6 in order to keep this knight protected in the center of the board. But now of course the pawn on e4 is hanging, and it seems so that something went wrong here for Stockfish. But that was, I think, the beautiful idea of this particular game. Pay good attention how the fish is attacking this beautiful position. Stockfish immediately makes progress with the move h4, and look at this now. The queen is lined up against the king. Not immediately, of course the king is not immediately endangered, but if this diagonal clears, then the king could be really destructive here. So that's why Clover had to be now really careful. First Clover played b takes c6, we have b takes c6, and now bishop to f4 competing now against the queen here on dark squares. We have h takes g3, f takes g3, and now comes the move that I, as I said, always love to see in Stockfish games. Look at this. You can guess the move probably. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now maybe it's the best continuation. It's not the continuation that wins the game or something here for black, but guess the typical Stockfish move. That's the question here. What would Stockfish do in this particular position? So pause the video and maybe try to play like the fish. Okay, here the fish played the impossible rook to a5. That's the move that I always like to see. As I said in the beginning, rook lifts, rook lifts, rook lifts. Whenever you see Stockfish playing a rook lift, you can immediately resign the game. I'm just kidding, but it's simple as that. You know that this rook is coming somehow into the game and you cannot stop it. This is the way to go. Look at this. The rook is now coming to h4 to h5. So in the game knight to c3, Clover realized the tactical problems, tried to get more pieces into the defense, but now Stockfish plays, of course, here a rook to h5, and now the pawn on h3 is hanging. Here you have to play h5. You cannot, of course, here play something like bishop to g2. This is not so good. Knight to f6 is coming to again knight to g4, so that's why Clover first created here some breathing spaces. Played now the move h4, and now another beautiful follow-up by Stockfish, bishop to g4. Still leaves this powerful knight on d4 for a while, because e3 I think white would love to play now. It's not possible, of course, because of this bishop's activity. So from this point on, I think slowly but surely Stockfish is taking over. Although Stockfish is down a pawn, but now the attack is rolling. Look at this now, how Stockfish activates the pieces further. Now it becomes really beautiful boxing match. So now bishop to f3, played by Clover. Now another beautiful move, knight to e5, getting another piece into the game, and it seems so that this could be maybe working. Bishop to e5, bishop to e5, and maybe you can pick up here the piece on g4, but actually it's not working because of this tactic. Rook to h4 you cannot take because of the bishop's activity. If you play something like bishop to h3 and cover yourself, then queen to c8 is simply winning the game. You cannot get pieces into the defense, and even if you play king to g2 instead of covering yourself with the bishop on h3, then it's not getting better. Rook takes g4 and you're vulnerable here around the square g3, so nothing is helping here white for sure. So as I said, after knight to e5 you don't have time to play bishop to e5. It's tempting, but actually it is not working. Again, great calculations here by the fish. So knight to e4 played by Clover, queen to e7, putting more pressure against the pawn on h4. Maybe in some lines even some tactics are possible. Maybe sack the rook and get the queen into the game. We have king to g2. Clover gets out of the potential h-file mess. We have knight to a5. Again, you see Stockfish is rerouting the pieces on more active squares. Stockfish applies the principle of the most activity. When the knight was on d4, it had its activity. Now on f5, it's even more active. It's now attacking even the king here on g2, indirectly of course, but you feel really the pressure around white's king now in the position. So rook to h1, Clover competes now on the h file. We have bishop to h6, forcing the trades of pieces, and now queen to d2. Here bishop to h6 was also a possibility, but again with the same problems. You are vulnerable on dark squares. That's the issue here. e3 is such a weak square. In the game after bishop to h6, Clover tried queen to d2, but again the main problem remains. We have here bishop to f4. You cannot pick it up, of course, with the pawn because your pawn is hanging here on h4. So that's why after move bishop to f4, queen to f4 had to be played now by Clover, and now f6. Really fixing everything here. Look at this. The pawn on f6 protects the pawn on knight on e5. The pawn on g6 is protecting the knight on f5. The bishop is protected. Again, you cannot play something like bishop to g4, knight to g4, queen to g4 is not working because of the beautiful fork on e3. So look at this. This is really pure attacking harmony here by Stockfish. Everything is dancing around the king. So really tricky ideas here by the fish. So f6 fixes now the structure, and basically I think what Stockfish wants to do now is somehow include the queen into the game on dark squares, maybe through the square a7, b6, c5, whatever the position allows you to do, but it's time to get somehow this queen on the diagonal and maybe threaten a beautiful check on e3. This could be really devastating. This could be really dangerous against black's king. So that's why here c5 play by the Clover engine, covering now this diagonal. Stockfish plays now brilliant move G5, because you cannot take now the pawn on G5. You get this one, F takes G5, the queen drops back, we pick up the rook. After a couple of trades, we pick up the piece. Now we pick up this one. Look at this, the queen can come into the game, but now with queen to H7 again, the game is over, I think, here for white for sure. Really well stuff. G5, good move by the fish. Here queen to D2 played by the Clover engine. We have now G takes H4, and now a counter attack here also by Clover. C takes D6, but now this position after move H3 and king to H2 and queen to A7 allows now Stockfish to play on dark squares as promised, as we wanted to get. So now there is a huge weakness on E3, and notice there is also the problem around the square F3. So the huge threat is now bishop takes F3, then E takes F3, and then knight to F3 is again the fork, the royal fork against the king and the queen. So white gets huge tactical problems in the game. So that's why here first rook to F1, controlling the F3 square. Now we have this idea, knight to E3, played by Stockfish, attacking the rook, and Clover had enough of it, simplify the game by trading off the queens, but it's not working. After queen takes H2, knight takes H2, F5, first play by Stockfish, attacking the knight drops back, and now Stockfish eventually wins the exchange, and from this point on, I think it's game over here for white. It's a simplified position. White lost decisive material. This pawn is weak, so it's time now to simply finish the game, of course, by trading off more pieces and going into a favorable, fully favorable endgame. So we have a rook to F1, of course. Now Stockfish continues the pressure, attack now simply the pawn, improve simply the piece activity, and now the pawn is lost here after knight to C3, king to G7, improving now simply every piece in the game, targeting even new weaknesses in the position, of course, the backward pawn on E2. We have king to H1, rook to B7, getting a new activity for the rook, as simplifying simply the position, as I said, searching for new better squares in the game. We have D4, knight takes F3, we have E takes F3, bishop to H5, the bishop drops back, knight to E2, and now the rook comes in a beautiful way into the game. We have knight to F4, attacking now the bishop, also threatening the fork. So that's why here Stockfish retreats to F7, where the bishop is controlling the knight, so the knight doesn't have any attacking possibilities anymore. We have rook to D1, and now a rook to D6, knight to F1, and now bishop to D5, attacking now also the pawn on F3. Now comes knight to D2 again, and now again a beautiful move here by the fish, C5. This is the way to go, because if you play D takes C5, then you get this one, bishop to F3. You cannot take, of course, knight to F3. A rook takes D1 will happen. You can cover yourself, but now, even with this beautiful move H2, the game would be over here for white for sure. So let's go back. After move C5, knight to E2 was the next move by Clover. We have now the move C4. Great idea, creating a new pattern in the game. We have now king to G1, and actually in this position the Clover engine resigns. So there's nothing that can be done. We can just support the rook, to support the pawn, push the pawn further. This pawn is weak. We can do so many things. So as I said, the evaluation here is even +6 in black's favor. So in this position, as we said, Clover resigned. So incredible game by the fish. I really loved many elements from the English opening, which is of course a solid opening. We have to say it. The English opening is a very often played opening in top grandmaster level. We have reached many times the position in this game in top grandmaster level. I think it's really an instructive game that you can use as your cornerstone, maybe of a better understanding of the English opening with the black pieces. Great ideas here by the fish, especially the pawn sacrifice, then the follow-up with the beautiful rook lift that danced all over the board. Of course, we have seen then cool tactical possibilities, but then eventually winning the exchange, going into a favorable endgame, pushing just the position to the limits, simplifying the game when it was time. Of course, when you're up the exchange, when you have a decisive advantage, then it's of course good to simplify the game, trading off more pieces, creating a pass pawn like this. So many elements, I think, in the game, more of course than I told you now, but in beautiful game here played by the fish. Really instructive game in the English opening. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the English opening for sure. If you want to see more Stockfish brutal games like this and maybe some other top engine games, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our whole playlist, and If you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos and what to say. Chess is the best, of course.